the religious will tell you that pride is a sin, a deadly sin, no less. I, being an atheist, of course, know that the truth is actually the complete opposite of what the religious people say, and I'll try and demonstrate that. Pride, obviously, can come from being a complete jerk, but I'm not talking about vanity. I'm talking about self-respect, pride in who you are, and what you've done. And I believe that that kind of pride can actually make you a very strong, ethical and moral person without the need for religion at all. Pride, far from being a deadly sin, can be a virtue. And the story goes like this. When I was 25 and a guitarist in a band, and shall we say getting some, I was at the height of my womanizing, drinking, partying days. But it was getting to me a bit, and I wanted to get away, and I had good memories of a little town in Yugoslavia called Porec, and so I decided to go there for 2 weeks on my own, and I had a great time. My run of good luck continued. I'd seen this 15-year-old German girl walking around. I cannot describe how gorgeous she was. Perfection. Sex on legs, as we used to say. But young. I was 25, so I was quite young myself, but she was still quite young to me. But magnet for the eyes. And I'd noticed her all over the place, in nightclubs, walking through the streets, and she was going out with this English piece of trash. She didn't speak English that well. She couldn't tell that he was scum, but any English person who heard him could hear every single word that he was saying and the way he was saying them and realising he was trash. He was about, I don't know, 17, 18, something like that. And one night, towards the end of the holiday, I was walking back from the nightclub along the beach, and this girl was sat in the dark, staring out to sea, crying her eyes out. And to get to the hotel I had to walk past her, and I couldn't walk past someone who was crying like that. So I stopped and asked her if she was okay, and she said that this English guy had said some really foul things to her, really foul things. And he just destroyed her. But now it was too late for her to go back to her room that night, because she was supposed to be back by 11 o'clock at night, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and her parents would kill her if they heard her going back into her room, which was next door to theirs. So, because she was such a sad, beautiful sight, I asked her if she wanted to come back to my room for the night, and we'd set the alarm early, and she could get back to her room before her parents woke up, and she'd get away with it. And I promised her that nothing would happen, and I was confident of that because she was such a sad sight, beautiful or not. And she got up, and she was very drunk, and as we were halfway back to the hotel, she said, "You know, it really doesn't matter if anything happens tonight, because I quite like you." And that just added to the sadness, because she'd only known me for about 25, 30 minutes, and I could have been as bad as the other guy, or a damn sight worse. So we went back to the hotel, and I offered her the bed, and she said, "No, it's okay, we can share it." And the 15-year-old girl just stripped naked. I think my jaw hit the floor. Wow. And I stripped off, and I got in that bed faster than you could say, "Do you want a cup of coffee?" And as I was lying in bed next to her, my body started to wake up. And I thought about it. I thought very hard about it. But something about it seemed ugly. Not wrong, just ugly. And so I rolled the other way, and I think it was a very, very long hour before I finally drifted off to sleep. And in the morning, after the alarm had gone off and we'd woke up, got dressed, and she was about to leave in good time to get back before her parents got up, she turned to me and she says, "Why didn't you do anything last night? You know I wouldn't have minded." And it was a very difficult question to answer. I mean, she knew that how should I put this? She knew I was in the mood. Maybe her self-confidence was damaged by a second guy turning her down. Beautiful girls can't be used to that. I just said, look, last night you were drunk, you were emotionally upset. You didn't think there was a decent guy on the planet, and had I jumped on you, you might have gone through your life thinking that. You might have done. Bad guy after bad guy, but it occurred to me that if I didn't do something, you would never be able to say to yourself there are no good men on the planet. You'd never be able to believe that if you remember me. And also I gained from it too, because I know that I resisted, that I did the right thing when I had every reason not to. I just did the right thing because it felt right. And I got the feeling that I would remember that night more than if it had sex. You see, at 25, I'd had enough sex to realise that you forget an awful lot of it. Some of it you remember, but in comparison to the amount you get, you forget an awful lot of it. And if we'd had sex, meaning me and the girl, I'd probably forget about it, but I wouldn't forget. Had we had sex, it would have been okay, but forgettable. But by not having sex, that night became beautiful and memorable. Does that make any sense? And I'd always be able to look in the mirror and say, I like you. That's pride. It's not a deadly sin. It helped me be strong. It helped me do the ethical, moral thing. It's interesting that the religious call pride a deadly sin, when pride is probably one of the keys to behaving well in a given situation, resisting the temptation to do something that you consider beneath you, not worthy of you. It takes pride to make that decision and have the strength to stick to it. So it gives me another reason to hate religion, because it teaches people that pride is the very thing that they shouldn't have, when that's the thing that helps people behave strongly. It makes me wonder if maybe this has something to do with the criminal statistics, the way in more atheistic countries the crime rates are lower, but in religious countries where they don't chop your hands off, the crime rate is higher. Maybe if you tell people that they're scum, they're going to behave like scum. But if you tell yourself that you're shit hot, the business, the dog's bollocks, as we say in England, if you tell yourself that you're something special, then you will behave like something special. If you get pleasure from feeling that about yourself, you won't want to let that go. An orgasm or two you'll forget, but a night where you do the right thing, you remember. And the girl wrote back to me a few years later, and she said, I still remember that good man. I hope he's still there. And I wrote back, and I told her that he was. He had some regrets, but he was still there. Pride isn't a sin. Pride is what you should have, but you have to earn it.